This may be a very unpopular opinion, but I strongly believe that Bitcoin is not a get rich quick or a get rich easy scheme. And in this video, I want to explain to you what exactly I mean by this. Let's get started. What you're seeing on your screen right now is a 4-year moving average price of Bitcoin. This line here is a 4-year moving average. We can see here that the day-to-day price may go up, come down, go up, come down, go up, come down. But over 4-year periods, the price pretty much just goes straight up. And the reason for this is that there's a finite amount of Bitcoin, and the demand for Bitcoin is essentially unlimited. In the short term, you're going to see a lot of volatility. So the way that I see it, whenever I buy Bitcoin, I expect to be wrong for at least 3.5 years, sometimes up to 5, even 6 years, because over time, Bitcoin's price is always going to be volatile. You're never going to find a time when Bitcoin's price is not volatile because people buy and sell assets based on emotions. They're always going to want to buy Bitcoin because the price has gone up over time. When they see the price coming down, they lose hope and they sell everything. We can see here on a daily basis, Bitcoin's price is going to go up, then it's going to come down. Then it's going to go up, it's going to come down. This trend is going to continue for a very, very long time. And if you're trying to avoid the volatility that comes with owning Bitcoin, I think you're going to be waiting for Bitcoin's price to go to such a high level that the US dollar price doesn't even matter anymore. We're going to see Bitcoin go to $1 million. Then we're going to see it go to $10 million. Then we're going to see it go to $100 million. At some point, Bitcoin is going to be so expensive, in terms of US dollars at least, that the value in US dollars won't matter anymore. If we think of this from the perspective of, let's say, some currency in a country like Argentina, that's one of the most recent countries that I went to, they don't price things in pesos. They price things in dollars. They just adjust their prices based on however much value the peso loses in terms of US dollars. Over time, you just see prices go up and up and up. They've gone up so much that people don't really care about pesos anymore. Pesos are definitely legal tender there, but if you look at the prices, they're very in line with how things are priced in the US based on US dollars. The reason for this is that the peso's value is dropping every single day, so valuing things in pesos would mean that you would constantly have to be increasing your prices over and over and over again. Bitcoin's price is always going to be volatile in terms of US dollars, but the only thing that you need to focus on is that there's always going to be higher lows. You can see the blue dots. And there's always going to be higher highs. So we can see the red here, the red here, the red here. We haven't reached the red here yet. But over time, the price will continue to go up because US dollars can be created out of nothing and added to the economy. Before, at least, there were pieces of paper. We used paper to create dollars, but now we can use digital dollars. So the supply of dollars is accelerating even faster. If you really want to time the market, what you can do is you can look at the crypto fear and greed index. What this shows you is how much people want Bitcoin versus how much people don't want Bitcoin. So at times we're going to see that the fear and greed index goes very high, so people are greedy. And at other times we're going to see that the fear and greed index goes very low because people don't want Bitcoin anymore. They think of it as a scam. They think it's going to zero. They think of it as a Ponzi scheme. When the price comes down, we see that the fear and greed index goes down. When the price goes up, we see that the fear and greed index increases. So higher numbers mean that people are more greedy. Lower numbers mean people are more fearful. So for example, let's take a look at Bitcoin's price on November 25th, 2018. This was near the low for the fear and greed index, meaning that people were extremely fearful. Here's the price chart. And if we zoom in on November 25th, 2018, we can see that the price ranged from $4,096 all the way down to $3,489. And if we zoom out, we can see that this was one of the lowest prices that it hit. So it went all the way up to almost $20,000 here, and it came all the way down. So what this shows you is that when people are fearful, they're selling. Because Bitcoin is a finite asset and the people who are fearful have a limited supply of Bitcoin, eventually they run out of Bitcoin to sell. And that's when the price starts coming back up again. Now let's take a look at a different scenario. We can see here on June 27th, 2019 is when the crypto fear and greed index went to nearly its highest at 92. Let's take a look at the chart now. On June 27th, 2019, we can see that the price ranged from $13,291 all the way down to $10,426. And if we zoom out, we can see that this was a local high. This is when the highest price was formed, and after this, the price started dropping again. And if we zoom in, we can see here on March 13th, 2020 is when Bitcoin reached a low of $3,879. So let's take a look at the fear and greed index again. We can see the exact date here, March 13th, 2020. The crypto fear and greed index was near the low. So if you do want to time the market, maybe you can take a look at this and you can see whether or not it's the right time to buy. Of course, this isn't going to always be right. We could see that Bitcoin's price goes to an all-time high, and then we see the crypto fear and greed index all the way at 100, but the price just keeps going because there's no Bitcoin left to be bought. This is eventually going to happen, at least in my opinion. Maybe I could be wrong here, but I think most retail investors have absolutely no idea what they're doing with this. They have no idea where this is going. They haven't studied it. They haven't put in the time to understand what it is. So what they do is they buy based on emotions. When they see the price going up, they want to buy. So the price goes up even more. Then when they see the price coming down, they get scared and they sell. And then the price comes down even more. Really, the only thing that you can do here is buy Bitcoin and wait. You don't need to wait to buy Bitcoin. Just purchase it at any price and eventually you will be right. For example, people who bought Bitcoin at $108,000, they're probably thinking, oh, I made the wrong decision. I'm going to sell everything. So some people probably did sell. This was the local high, 108,000. That was the highest price it ever reached. And I was a buyer at that time. I was buying Bitcoin, but I'm also a buyer at the current price. Bitcoin went down to 92,000. Bitcoin is now at 93,600. I'm still buying. I'm going to buy no matter what. If I have extra productivity, I'm going to exchange that for the hardest asset in the world. Instead of holding pieces of paper, I'm going to hold as much Bitcoin as I possibly can because I know for a fact that over time, more and more papers can be created, more and more dollars can be added to the economy, but nobody can change the supply of Bitcoin. Nobody can make it so that there eventually will be more than 21 million Bitcoin. That's something that is fixed. It's something that is set in stone, set in code, I guess you can say, set in Bitcoin. But that's something that can't be changed and nobody can make it so that that doesn't happen anymore. But I didn't always think this way. Over time, I learned. I went through the pain of seeing Bitcoin at a certain price, expecting it to go lower, and seeing Bitcoin just completely skyrocket and beat my expectations for where it should be going in the short term. For example, one of my coworkers told me about Bitcoin in March of 2020, and I saw the price drop significantly. I saw the price go all the way down to 3,800, 3,700. I don't remember what the price was at the time, but all I could think of was how Bitcoin could possibly drop even lower. So if I had been introduced to Bitcoin at $1,000, I would have probably expected it to go to 700. That's because I didn't understand it at the time. Once I understood how Bitcoin works, I finally started to realize that no matter what price you pay, you're always going to be right eventually because more and more dollars will always chase Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not a get rich quick scheme by any means. A lot of people will tell you that it's a get rich quick, get rich easy scheme, but it's not. You have to go through the pain of volatility. Could you imagine buying all the way up here, $68,000, thinking that Bitcoin is going to go to $100,000 because that's what the trend looks like? You can see the prices go straight up. People probably bought here. They probably used their mortgages. They probably used their personal lines of credit. And they just felt stupid for 3 whole years. They saw their Bitcoin go from $68,000 all the way down to $16,000. Maybe some of them sold. This is where people ran out of Bitcoin. They couldn't sell anymore. This is where we saw extreme fear in the market. But eventually, Bitcoin's price started coming back up. And this is the trend that you need to get used to. So if you're going to buy Bitcoin at any time, expect to feel stupid for at least 3, 4, 5 years. Always expect that you're going to be wrong in the short term. You must have at least a 10, 15, 20-year time horizon if you want to buy Bitcoin, if you want to be successful. If you plan to buy Bitcoin with your rent money, you think that over the next month, over the next 2 months, your Bitcoin price is going to double and you'll be able to pay for 2 months of rent with your rent money, you're probably going to end up being completely wrong. You're going to lose everything. If you buy Bitcoin with a long time horizon and you plan to just buy over time, you're going to do extremely well. What I mean by this is if you buy 10, 15, 20, $30, $100 a day, whatever you feel comfortable with. If you can only do $1 a day, perfectly fine. $30 a month. That's better than nothing. So let's take a look at this dollar cost average calculator. You can see here, if you started buying Bitcoin at the very top, actually, let's take a look at the date for the very top was. It was November of 2021. So let's make that the starting date. We'll go November 11, 2021, and we'll hit calculate. We'll do $100 every week. So you would have earned, even if you started buying Bitcoin all the way at the top, you would now be up 190%. No other investment can give you this return over 3 years after you started buying at the very worst time to start buying. I think if we look back on this video 3, 5, 10 years from now, we're going to see that the people who were buying Bitcoin at $108,000 are going to also do extremely well. Bitcoin's going to 200,000, 500,000, a million, 10 million. The price is going to keep rising because the number of dollars that can chase Bitcoin will always increase. We can always add more dollars to the economy, but once we reach 21 million Bitcoin, there will never be any more. So before you ask anybody whether it's the right time to buy Bitcoin, ask yourself first, is this money that I can part with for at least 5, 10, 15 years? If you're buying Bitcoin with money that you're supposed to be putting towards your necessities, like your groceries, like your rent, then you're probably going to end up in a very bad position because in the short term, anything could happen to Bitcoin. We don't know whether or not it could drop 50% overnight. It could drop 80% overnight. There's always the chance that that could happen. But if you wait long enough, I think you'll do perfectly fine. So the way that I see it, instead of asking people if it's the right time to buy Bitcoin, just buy Bitcoin and wait. There's no need to time the market. There's no need to wait for Bitcoin's price to come down before you buy. Just buy Bitcoin. Eventually, you'll be right. Over time, you're going to feel pretty smart because what you're doing is you're stacking Satoshis. You're buying Bitcoin with the mindset that you want to have as much of it as possible over the next 10, 20, 30 years. You're not expecting to get rich quick because Bitcoin isn't a get rich quick scheme. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not a get rich easy scheme. A lot of people will tell you Bitcoin is a get rich quick scheme, but they've fallen for the trap of trying to get rich after 40, 50 years. They buy index funds. They spend $500, $1,000 a month for 40, 50 years. And at some point after 40 or 50 years, finally they can enjoy their life. With Bitcoin, that's not the case. With Bitcoin, you can get rich within 10, 12, 15 years. We're going to see Bitcoin forming higher highs, higher lows. I don't know how high the next high will be. I don't even think that it'll go below this point right here. This is where Germany dumped 50,000 Bitcoin on the market, and the lowest the price went was $50,000. Do you really think that Bitcoin is going to go to $15,000 ever again when the market has basically agreed that the price is about $90,000, $95,000. But the only thing that you need to worry about here is stacking more Satoshis. It doesn't matter how much you buy. If you can buy 10, 20, 100, 1,000, 10,000 a day, buy however much you can. Keep in mind that one Satoshi is 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin. It's like buying ounces of gold. If you were to buy ounces of gold, I know gold is physical, Bitcoin is digital, but if you had ounces and ounces and ounces of gold, no matter what price you bought it at, eventually that gold would be worth more. So we can see that here. People probably thought they were stupid for buying gold here in 2020 when gold was at $2,000 because it came right back down. But eventually it will go up. This is what happens when you have a scarce asset priced in something that's basically worthless. The US dollar is essentially worthless. It can be created out of thin air. So when you look at the price of an asset like Bitcoin or the price of an asset like gold, in terms of US dollars, the price will go up forever. You're never going to feel stupid over the long term for owning it. In the short term, you may, but in the long term, you very likely won't. If you had bought Bitcoin in 2017 and you waited until 2017 or 2022, this was the only time when Bitcoin's price was below its previous all-time high. I don't know how often that'll happen, but the way that I see it, it's just another opportunity to buy more. I'd happily try to stack more Satoshis because my goal isn't to get rich quick. My goal is to make sure that nobody can steal my wealth. My goal is to make sure that my purchasing power increases over time. If I were to just save US dollars, I know for a fact that I'm guaranteed to lose value over time. The US dollar is pieces of paper. It can be created out of thin air. So over time, it's guaranteed to lose purchasing power, while Bitcoin can't be created out of thin air. You can't create Bitcoin without putting in the effort, time, energy required.